Well, guys, not every lie can be a good one. This ball is lying right up against the collar. The problem is there's very little grass under the ball, but there's a lot right behind the ball. So when I have this shot, I have to ask myself 3 questions. Number 1, what club am I going to use? Number 2, how will I set up? And number 3, what stroke should I apply to the shot? Let's talk about number 1, the club. I elect to use a pitching wedge for a couple reasons. Number 1, it's got the sharpest edge of all the wedges, which will help you get through the grass behind the ball. It's also got the straightest edge of all your wedges, which means it'll help me with the line when I go to hit the shot. I want to keep that ball in line. So that's the club I'm going to use. The setup is very similar to my putting setup. I'm going to get into my putting setup, including my grip. I'm going to play the ball forward in my stance. I'm also going to put a little weight forward. The only unique part about this setup, guys, is I'm not going to ground the club. In fact, I'm going to bring the club up off the ground so that this leading edge is right next to the equator of the golf ball, the center of the golf ball. So my goal is for this edge to contact the center of the ball. If that happens, the ball will bounce a couple feet and then roll like a putt. Make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
So really what I'm doing is I am putting with my pitching wedge. Now, the only way I'll hit that equator is if I keep my body perfectly still. Sounds like a putting stroke, right? Keep my head and my body still and don't get wristy. If any of those things happen, I'll never hit that equator. So I have to stay still, quiet wrists, and then putt it with the wedge. All right, guys?
Yep.
I'd love to have a volunteer put this tip into action. Dan Palazzo, could you help me?
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Doug. How
Dan.
you doing?
Come on up here. Great.
All right, Dan.
Dan, let's go through this together. The key thing is you have your pitching wedge, so we're off to a good start there. Let's get into your putting setup. I'd like to see your ball forward. You have a reverse grip on there, which is great, okay? Maybe a little weight on the front leg, okay? And now I'd like you to lift that club up so it's next to this ball, but on the equator of the ball right there, all right? So normally you would ground this club, but for this shot, we're gonna lift it up there, okay?
Yep.
Now the stroke is a one-piece stroke. It's a pendulum stroke. So I want you to stay very still. Make a nice stroke down towards that hole. I'm going to stand back with this wonderful group from Belfour Restoration and let's see what happens. Oh guys, look at that stroke. Left to right, he played it beautifully. And that is a tremendous effort. Well done,
great
Dan.
tip, Doug.
That's a well done. Well, if you want to remember one thing from this lesson, putt with the edge of your wedge. Fabulous job, Dan.
That's a great tip, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.